Hello dear friends and welcome back. So in today's video, we are going to discuss with creating my first container. The initial plan was to discuss the components, but my view is we should first know how we can run a container because Docker is all about that only. So let's quickly switch to the terminal and start running some cool commands. Now, if you're not aware, you simply need a Docker run command and a basic image name if you want to run a container out of that image. Now I'll use a simple hello world image given in the Docker page, and it will first try to find that image locally on my system. Now, if it's not able to find that image, it will start pulling from Docker Hub, and it would run a container out of that. This simple phone line message simply means that whatever steps has happened and my container ran fine. Now, how you can see what all containers are running, just do a Docker PS. Nothing is running as of now. So put a PS-A and it will show you what all containers are in running or stopped state, and also show you the time, how much time before that container was stopped. So that was one of the way. You can also use an interesting image name, BusyBox, that can help you to run shell-like commands. So here I would like to simply echo a message to my screen, and okay, something went bad, and we noticed that we use the exclamation, which is actually interpreted by shell. So let's quickly remove that and try echoing the message again. And bingo, this is a success. So you notice that this small container, so it has done its work, echoed the message, and it terminated. Do a Docker PS again, you won't find that container, but you do a -a, that means it was there and it completed work. Now, you can also map your container ports to your local system. So the command would be same Docker run, just put a hyphen name as well, and you can provide an interactive name to your container rather than the container ID. That is my Nginx in my case. Now -p, the syntax would be the port on my local system and the port on the container. So I just want to expose the port 80 on the container to my 8085, and in the Nginx is the image name. So container is running, but you have noticed that it is not leaving the shell for you. The container is running and it's holding the shell. Now, if you do a control C or exit, it would terminate the container as well. So if you again do a Docker PS, you would notice that the container is not running. So now what next we can do for that? So we can run our container in a -d or a detached mode. So the container would run, but it would run in the backend. Okay, my bad. The same name container is already there in the stopped state. So first I have to remove that container. So you can simply use a command docker container rm and the container ID, but always be very cautious what container you're going to remove. So I have my Nginx container. Let me paste that ID and remove that container. So that's removed now. Now, if I run the command again, my container would run in a detached mode, or I would say in the background. You will find this long container ID and the container name as well, which would be much easier to interpret. So do a Docker PS, you will find the name and the ID attached to it and what ports it's mapped to. So let's test if it's running fine, do a curl. You can do a local host to the primary IP of your Docker system and the port which you expose on your local system to run this. Now you can notice a beautiful message from the Nginx. That means I am able to connect to my container fine outside on port 80. Now the next thing is to run the container interactively. So, or it will provide a terminal to you. So the options are -i and -t. I means interactive and T means it will provide a terminal to you. I'll provide an image CentOS and run a bash process only. So again, the image is not there. It may take few seconds to pull the image from the library, and it would run the image for you. So depending on your internet speed, that matters the most. So the time can vary from seconds to minutes, or maybe to hours, or it all depend how much internet speed you have. And once the image is downloaded locally, it would start creating a container for you out of that. So you can see now it's extracting the image, and it would be quick because the image is downloaded, and it would now deploy the container for you. Now just do a Docker, or we already done the Docker PS. We're already inside the container, so Docker command won't run. So now you can see you're inside a container. You can also do done an uptime, which will show you how many minutes before this container is being spent. So, and this is the container, other specs which you can see. So we are all inside the container only, not in our local system. How to come out? Just do an exit and you'll come out of the container. But the bad thing will be container would be terminated as well. Stay assured, in the future section, we will definitely going to cover how we can come out of a container without terminating it or without stopping it, to be honest. So you can simply start the container again with a Docker container start. And if you do a Docker PS now, you will find that container in your container metadata, or I would say a Docker metadata. Now, you must have noticed we've run the container, but what all storage it's taking from. So whatever storage it's taking, it's only taking from your local system. Now, you may or may not have external storage from where you want to provide the storage to your container. So there's a very interesting flag -v, and you can map your volume to that. So this is a simple command where I have not provided any external storage. Everything is shared from my local system only. And even the disks as well. So just quickly come out of that container. And start executing the command. So now if I compare with my local system, you may notice some of the file systems are of same of my system only, but not every. So let me pick one network share, which I have pasted on my system, and start creating container out of that only. Or start providing the storage to that container from that share only. Again, I'm running it in detached or interactive mode. It all depends on your requirement, the image name, and if any shell. So I have not asked for any bash process to be running at the first place. And now you can notice that your default CentOS root is now going on that network share. We will discuss this volume section later in much detail, that how storage can be persistent, non-persistent, and other factors according to that. So stay assured about that. Now let's move to another interesting section where you may notice that you're not able to run some of the commands on the container. That simply means because the container is running with the default Docker process or the Docker writes. So you can see a container is running fine. Now, if you try to mount some temporary file system or the permanent storage as well on the system, you may notice this type of command as a permission denied. If you do a simple ID, you will find that it's running with a root. You are root user inside the container. But the problem is the container is not running with the root rights. So there's a very small flag and a very beautiful flag which you can use to solve this dilemma, and that is ---- privileged. So again, run that container with a ---- privileged option, and just like a root process in Linux, so it will simply run your container with the root rights. Now you're again inside the container. Now run that command again and notice the difference. So now you have not gathered any type of errors, and obviously your temporary file system is also mounted on the system. Now, one last thing, we already created a lot of things. We already created a lot of commands how we can run a container. Now let's see how we can stop and remove the containers. So this is pretty small. We will discuss the container in much depth, so don't take tension. Now if you put a simple stop against the running container, just provide the container ID and Docker container stop, and the container ID would stop that container, but it will not be deleted. If you find a Docker PS-A, it would be there inside the output. You may pause the screen and see if you can find that container. Now, if you want to remove the container again, you simply have to give a RM, but ensure that the container should be in a stopped state. If you provide this to a running container, you will definitely get an error message because the container is already running. So this is the case. Now you can simply stop the container, or if you don't want to, you can add a ---- force option to that, and it will stop the container, remove the container for you, to be honest. Now this small command is going to list all the container IDs which are being running in the system or in the stopped state, but in the Docker metadata. And with this simple string, you can remove all those containers. So if you do a Docker PS, everything is removed, or a PS-A, everything is removed again. So now that's up to you how you want to test further. This is just a basic introduction to containers, how you can play and spin your own containers. For the last command, I would say stay vigilant, because that is just a dirty hack to remove all the containers. You may have some interesting containers or the important ones which you don't want to delete. So just a cleanup thing. We will discuss in the future how we can do all these things more gracefully and more cleanly. So that's all from my end in this video. I hope you guys also enjoyed this section, and in the future videos, we will come again and start discussing the components in details. And in the meantime, you guys can start with your Docker knowledge. So that's all from my end. Have a nice day. Thank you.